Hey everyone, thanks for joining in. We have talked a lot about remote work and the different policies that could help you ensure that remote work is as secure as possible. When I talked to Agoston about the different policies that are being suggested by our cybersecurity experts, he told me about compliance criteria that are being enforced specifically in the financial sector. Agoston is the CEO at MineInfo and a long-time HexNode partner. Agoston, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what MineInfo does?
Hello, thanks for inviting me to the HexCon. And we are working in providing SMEs and governmental institutions security solutions, and especially in the network security, endpoint security, and remote management solutions. And about myself, I work in the IT industry 21 years ago, and mostly I work with IT security solutions and planning and architecturing it as well, not just selling it. And my main interest is about this bigger architectures and how they fit together and to provide the best solution for the customers and not just from a given product. And yeah, that's all about me.
That's fantastic. So let's get right to it. There are some institutions that house extremely sensitive data, and something that tops the list in my mind is the financial industry. I'm sure that was the case for many governments around the world too. What were some of the challenges faced by financial institutions during the pandemic, and what were the new requirements these institutions had to comply with?
Yeah, that was a pretty new situation because of the lockdown. The remote work was forced. So we had to work remotely because you cannot leave your home or office, or you can just move between the offices and your home. So we had to provide, and the companies had to provide, of course, for the employees a solution to log in, but in a secure way. And this is why the financial institutions face the challenge because uh, there are some new requirements published by the MNB. MNB stands for the Central Bank in Hungary, and it's a national bank, the National Central Bank in Hungary. And they are facing this challenge because they are working with uh, confidential data. So they work with personal data, financial data, and combining these together can be, if there's a breach, that they could be fined. And of course, there's a public humiliation because of that. And the lots of companies in the financial sector was not ready for this new challenge, and that's not because they use old software or outdated software, I mean, or they are not secure enough. That was because in Hungary, especially, and in other European Union companies, the employers expected you to be on site because the financial sector it's pretty conservative. Of course, I'm not talking about the fintech sector, but the bigger banks and insurance companies. They are a bit conservative about opening up the the sensitive data. Okay, so that was the problem, not because they spend on the security, but from another point of view, from another perspective, and not from the remote work perspective.
Great. From a technology point of view, how were these compliances looked at?
We had multiple challenges. First, of course, everybody uses VPN, and the VPN with the two-factor authentication for to provide VPN with two-factor authentication for the employees in the company, all of them, not just one of them, because the VPN was almost there, but the two-factor authentication sometimes it was missing because for these users, because we mostly provided the VPN connection to IT professionals, to third-party companies who provided support for them, but not for the users. So we had to provide some new VPN or extend the VPN or provide a new VPN solution for the companies so they are able to provide it to their employees in a secure manner. And right now, the other big thing is that the data loss prevention, the DLP solution, right now it's mandatory. It's not written in an act, but it's a strong requirement it's like an advice from the central bank. They say it should be installed when it means if there's a data breach or something that happens, something goes south, and you don't have a DLP solution, you can be easily fined. So right now DLP, we can take it as mandatory. And because some of the companies, they were not allowed to bring out data, and the people didn't work from their home. Not all of the, just like in the laptops, they didn't have these DLP solutions. Of course, financial institutions had DLP solutions on the local computers usually, but we have to extend it in a new way and be careful about how to be provided and what we provide on the remote places. Besides that, because we cannot control the environment where the workers, the remote workers right now, the employees, it's that the encrypted devices are mandatory. So you have to encrypt your disk, your or it's better if you have a full disk encryption and so on, but not just on the notebooks and the desktops and so on, but on the mobile devices, just like the tablets and the mobile phones. So even if you have your own device, the company data should be encrypted, or the whole device should be encrypted. So it's like you are not allowed to access company data and internal network if you don't have encrypted device on. Yeah, that's all. And besides that, to make sure that the man-in-the-middle attacks are not happening, or of course everything could happen, but you lessen the probability for that. That right now it's an immediate VPN connection, it's mandatory. So if you connect to another network than the company network, so you join your own Wi-Fi connection, or you are in a hotel or an airport or a mobile data, your system should be set up that as soon as you join to a foreign network, a VPN connection is established to the gateway, and the redirection happens. So all the data connection, just like all the connections, should go through the company UTM or new generation firewall, because you should have something like an IPS system, which is sometimes it's built into the NGFV. And if you want to control everything, we have to mention, because the central bank mentioned as well, the bring your own devices paradigm, that when you have your own devices or when the employees have their own devices, you have to provide, and even for the company owned devices, you have to provide at least an MDM, but preferably an EMM solution, so an enterprise mobility management and end-to-end point mobility management. So right now it's a mandatory as well, and that's because you have to control everything if you join to a network and access financial data and personal data if you are a financial company. And to make sure that you are not so easily hacked, the patch management should be available all the time. So no matter where you are, the company should be able, or the company would be able to push the patches, the upgrades to your system, no matter that you are in a lobby of a hotel, you are in your home or in an office. Everything should be treated in the same way. And what they didn't say or didn't write down was a network access control, but right now it's almost mandatory, because if you want to make sure that everything is patched, and you have to make sure that only, because they didn't mention the network access control, but they mentioned that you have everything updated when you join to the company network, even through VPN and everything. It's there. You have to provide something which verifies, and network access control does specifically this, that it checks that what do you have, that you have the patches, the upgraded OS, and so on. And lots of companies didn't use that before because network access control can be really hard to introduce when you have a complex and not a heterogeneous system. And before that, we used the privilege access management and privilege session management. As I said before, most of the time we provided the remote, or the companies provided the remote work possibility for third-party companies, for IT professionals who supported their systems and their own IT guys. So we recorded all the sessions, and it was a best effort, to say at least. Okay, so they used jump host and everything was recorded. They used a different segment. They didn't contact with the data in a direct way, so everything was stripped down. But right now it's not manageable with the PSM to record and filter and introduce lots of jump hosts, because it would increase the complexity. So we opt out from that, from this jump host and PSM solutions for the usual employees. And this is why we have to use a network access control. So when we use a network access control, we make sure that the OS is upgraded, the patch, all the patches are applied for third-party applications. You should take care of that as well, not just the operating system patches, and antivirus, and everything is upgraded, and everything works. And if you are not comply with the policy, you should be sent into a quarantine VLAN and start a remediation, and that's all.
Well, from a strategic point of view, what were the challenges faced?
The biggest challenge was that it happened in a sudden, and because the pandemic and the lockdown just started just like in a really short time. And the challenge was what to choose, the best of breed solution or an integrated solution from a vendor, or a vendor solution which is provided everything. So just to stay with a vendor which provides solution for network access control, endpoint management, and so on, or choose the best things or the best of breed solutions for the different tasks. And because of that, because I believe in the best of breed solutions and integrations, because right now everything communicates or should be able to communicate through APIs. I go for the best of breed solutions and to convince the board and the CEO and the CFO and everybody else to go for not on an easier way, but with an integrated solution, which may be not the best, but the best of breed solution. And besides that, the users. The other challenge was the users, to give them training, how to work remotely, what to check, how is it secure, what happens when you see some warnings on the screen, what to do, what not to do. And yeah, so give training for the users in a very short time. That was another challenge.
Very well. That is great advice. Something that we missed out when talking about the technology aspects of things. There are so many solution providers when it comes to proving 2FA encryption and DLP. How would a company go around to choosing the right solution for them?
For the two-factor authentication, let's start with that, because you start with it as well. And right now everything should be used two-factor authentication, because the passwords are dead. And that you can use SMS, and lots of guys use SMS, or they use an authenticator app, which looks much better. But the reality is that sometimes the devices could be hacked. So if you have a phone and you use your authenticator app and it's hacked, they can read your SMS, and they can read the authentication code from the authenticator app and block and use it before you use it, and block the usage of the authenticator app on your side. So the evolution is started with SMS, text message for the US conference attendees an authenticator app, and right now we prefer the hardware keys. So my advice to use something which is a separate hardware, what you have to have, and it's not it's used independently, so you don't have to install any drivers or programs, so you don't depend on the operating system. And the next thing was, with the challenge and my advice, to control the endpoints, to have something like an EMM solution, which is mandatory in our case with the financial institutions, but go for the maturity and the license options rather than the shiny dashboards and so on. Of course, the dashboard should be clean and everything should be clean and really understandable, and you have to have all the features you require, but always go for a more mature solution. And when you have lots of license options, because some companies, some solution providers go for just standard license, premium license, but if you have a broader selection, you can fine-tune and choose the best and most cost-effective way for the company. And so this is why I talk about maturity, that you all the features, a proven track record, lots of references, and of course you have to take into account whether there are on-prem and cloud solutions. If you go for a cloud solution, always go for a proven solution, not just a newcomer. Okay, and to make sure that all the patches are there and everything else is there, then go for the network access control, as I said before, and choose a solution which suits your best needs. So I wouldn't say to choose product A or product B, but always go around and do not stick with one vendor. Of course, you can sell one specific solution, but always try to choose, in that case, a solution which is very well integrated with other players and with lots of solutions, because the integration is the key, that you don't have to create customizations, or deploy custom scripts and so on, because the integrated tools, if there's a proven track record for that, the integrated tools are always easier to work with. And because in these days you have to support more and more systems and subsystems, and the timing is everything. So if it's too complex, you can introduce new loopholes, new problems, new configuration, wrong configurations or inappropriate configurations. So you can make mistakes with just deploying the solution, and maybe you open up a hole to your system because of that. And so always go for a network access control solution, which is, I would say, not from a given vendor, but which is mature, has lots of plugins, tested plugins, constantly upgraded or continuously upgraded, and it could be even open source or proprietary version. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you don't have to learn customization or new scripting language or something like that, because if you have a given module for that, you can, and with a mature system, you can be sure that lots of guys run into problems and before you, and they have seen lots of needs from the companies and they are developed. If they are still in the business, that should happen. And so always go for the best of breed network access control. Okay. And what else? Oh yeah, for the encryption, because we also mentioned the encryption. So the encryption, it's always use a tool which works with the OS integrated solution. I don't say that the third-party solutions are inferior or wrong. No, I say in that case, just stick with the standard OS tools, because the OS tool will be available and the OS encryption will be available even if you have problems with the management tool. So you will not stick with encrypted drives and you cannot access your own data or own endpoint. So always choose something which is integrated with the OS and manages the OS encryption tools or solutions. And what to choose for that and for the endpoint management, for a UAM or an EMM, choose something like HexNode, of course, because it can handle and enforce the encryption. So always go for that. Okay, so you have to take into account the EMM solutions, what they provide when we talk about encryption and enforcing the encryption. And the last thing I would like to mention is the DLP and what to choose. We have endpoint DLPs and network DLPs. The network DLPs, they are proxying the connections. So if you try to upload something to the cloud or attach something, they are filtered. Or when you send out an email, an SMTP proxy can handle this DLP stuff. But from endpoint point of view, we have other tools just like Skype, Telegram, and so on. So we have lots of local tools, and of course you have to handle the devices just like the pen drives or other things. And of course, a network DLP will not see that. But on another way, the endpoint DLP will not be able to manage what happens, for example, in the webmail. So because in the endpoint agent, you can enforce not to allow or do not allow to copy a given file to a pen drive or to upload it to the Google Drive. Okay, but what happens if you have a confidential email in the webmail or in your mailbox, and you just log into the webmail? You don't upload anything, you don't download anything, you just forward the mail. Okay, so a network DLP would be able to handle it. The endpoint DLP will not able to handle it, but the endpoint DLP handles lots of other things, but the network DLP it's not able to do. So my advice to go for a solution which provides both of these DLP methods, the network and the endpoint. But if you don't have a solution like this, then go for the endpoint, because on the endpoint we have much broader selection of software where you can just send out data. So yeah, the endpoint, if you have to choose that, in my opinion, the endpoint DLP, it's much more important than the network DLP. But if you can handle it or you have the right software for that, go for a solution which handles both network and endpoint DLP. So that was all.
Great. Well, there are so many more things we would like to ask you, but we are constrained on the time. If you guys have any questions for Agoston, head to the Discord channel and ask away. We'll be there to answer those questions. Agoston, thanks a lot for being with us, and I hope everyone has a happy rest of HexCon20. Thank you.